Hey guys, welcome to Project Noctis. We'll be covering a brief overview and layout of the character creation system in Blade & Soul. I'm gonna guess you're already familiar with the game, whether you've played it or not, so we'll be jumping right in. For this video, we'll be focusing on particularly the Yun, a gender-locked female race. Getting started, you can see that there's 4 tabs on the right with 5 tabs on the left, and we'll be explaining all sections as the video progresses. Initially, you'll be given a default look, where there are 20 presets to choose from. If you're unsure of where to begin, I suggest picking one and going from there. As this video is relatively sped up, it won't cover all the sliders within each tab, so you'll still have some experimenting to do when creating your own unique character. Throughout the video though, you'll notice that there's a lot of camera movement, which can easily be done with your mouse and mouse wheel, so I definitely recommend making use of the different angles to get a better perspective of how your character will look when it's done, with even more features on the left that we'll be talking about momentarily. As we move on to the hair tab, I want to mention that there will be more hairs available in-game using N coins, which is the currency that you pay real money to obtain, so if you really don't like any of the options, you're not entirely out of luck. Also, every race has their own set of hairstyles, so that may be another thing to consider when initially choosing your race. The body type option here is also a preset that's entirely customizable, so we recommend to just pick one for now that suits your style and define it in the later tabs. As we move on to the next tab, you'll notice that there's plenty to work with when it comes to the face, such as pupil shape, eye shape, color, and a whole bunch more. And by the end of this video, we'll have actually created a character one of our team members will be using as a final look. So if you're wondering why we keep shifting tabs and making all these tiny little micro adjustments, well, that's pretty much the reason why. Though the creator doesn't have an RGB spectrum to work with when choosing colors, it does actually have around 50 colors to choose from in most tabs, so don't feel like you're gonna look like every other Jane Doe in the game. One thing that might irk you, however, is the lack of customization when it comes to facial decorations, which will be coming up in just a second, with no way to really change the placement, color, or anything else for that matter when you're selecting one. We'll go actually and move on into the face customization, which you just saw a brief glimpse of maybe about a minute ago, and immediately you're pretty much thrown into over 20 different sliders. And though a little confusing at first, it is best to toggle the sliders all the way to the left and right as shown to actually see how it affects your look. From there you can get a better understanding of what you need and thus have more success when trying to get the look you want. We'll just be creating our character here, and one neat thing about this game is that you can actually save your appearance and share it or reuse it. So if you feel like character creation isn't in your forte, or simply just don't want to spend the time making your character look super awesome, then we will be posting our finalized look in the description and how to download and apply it in your game to either use as a final product or just as a foundation that, admittedly, I honestly think that looks better than most of the preset Yuns. Oh, and minor pro tip, if you want a more edgy look to your character, then make your eyebrows point down as if they're angry, and if you want a more innocent or anime look, have them slant upwards. You can also make the ends of your eyes point upwards or downwards accordingly. Something to note is the huge variation of looks among different races, so don't feel that there is a be-all end-all setting that you can use for every race, as we have Gons who are absolutely giant, and Lins that are super duper tiny, and I'm talking 2 feet tall tiny. Now, I was briefly mentioning the left tab earlier, and feel it should be given a little bit more in-depth explanation. There are tons of ways to change the look of your character, as you can already tell, and undoubtedly you might feel a little lost sometimes. Thankfully, we have more than just the camera to work with, and can add things such as different backgrounds, play with gloomy lighting, wear costumes that you'll more likely than not pick up throughout your adventures, poses that arguably are not that common, and even size comparisons of the other races, a feature I find pretty neat because, let's face it, you'll be interacting with other players more often than not, and you don't want to look like a giant. Or, well, if you're a Gon, maybe you do. One other thing you can change on the left is the voice, as this is the sounds your character will be making depending on whether you're fighting, in a cutscene, or using emotes. As we are playing in the beta, the voices are not entirely finalized yet, and I do have to critique NCSoft a little bit on the relatively disappointing voice actors in this game, but hope that they refine it a little bit more prior to its release so you guys can really enjoy it. The last tab I want to briefly mention on the right is the body customization as shown here, something that really makes use of the tabs on the left, as here we'll be altering the entirety of your character beyond just the face. Having that size comparison or pose set is pretty handy when unsure of how you look amongst the crowd. Oh, and yes fellas, you can adjust the chest size of females in a variety of fashions. Please don't make them 3 times the size of your head for the sake of everyone who has to see your character. I don't want to be doing a quest on my tiny little character and have to walk by someone whose tits are bigger than I am, though you technically could. One other thing I'd like to say is that Yuns are actually freakishly tall, so keep that in mind when making one. Even on the smallest settings, you'll pretty much be towering most other characters, especially the Lins. Second pro tip is under body customization, you can navigate all of the features that include length, such as your thighs, your calves, your torso, etc., to shorten or heighten the character beyond just the little height setting at the very bottom. Some, such as myself, actually prefer doing this first when starting a character, as you'll have a better representation of how tall the character is going to be before altering the face or head size. This is completely up to your discretion, as again, there is no universal way to make your character look better than anyone else's, but I find that it does make it a little bit more convenient when changing these settings at the start, rather than doing them last and having to go back. Other than that, Character Creator is pretty straightforward, and it does create an interesting start to the game, with hours and hours of customization features and characters that do look pretty lifelike when your settings are thrown all the way up. Alternatively, you can opt to make your character completely hideous and troll everyone around you. And trust me, this does happen pretty often, as I've noticed in beta already. But when all's said and done, you can easily save the appearance of your character by using the Manage Appearance button on the bottom right under your character and hitting the Save button on the right. You can go back and save at a later time, so don't feel if you forget to do this you have to do it all over again. Uploading an image is just as easy with the click of a button, and so is changing it back. Again, I do want to say that this video is just an overview, so apologies if it felt a little rushed or if I didn't clarify some things. We do have the comments option available for that, so feel free to leave some comments because we are very good at replying to them. But hopefully it gave you an idea of how the creation software is used, so you can feel a little bit more comfortable when the game is released. Thank you guys so much for watching. We are planning to do an entire series on all things Blade and Soul, so be sure to stick around and subscribe. If you have any particular requests on tips and tricks that you'd like to see, please go ahead and drop that in the comments. Otherwise, see you next time.